Due to GSP being unwilling to fight before November, his clash with Michael Bisping has been cancelled. Surprisingly, this was celebrated by fans who felt that GSP didn't deserve the middleweight title shot in the first place. While Dana White has confirmed GSP's next fight will be for the welterweight title, we have no clue who the champion he faces will even be. So we've decided to hell with championships. These are 10 matchups for GSP that are better than Michael Bisping. Until then, let us know what your favorites are, and remember to push that red button to subscribe for more. Demian Maia. Demian Maia is in a frustrating place. While undoubtedly the best grappler MMA has ever seen, he just doesn't seem to be able to get the welterweight title shot. After his notoriously boring fight with Anderson Silva, he dropped to welterweight and began tapping everyone out. The trouble is the UFC hasn't forgotten that middleweight clash and heavily favor strikers from a marketing standpoint. So the UFC has a predicament on their hands, a clear, undisputable #1 contender who they do not want to give a title shot to. Regardless of sports politics, Maia is a fascinating matchup for GSP. This is because GSP is one of the only fighters that could hang with Maia on the ground. GSP excels in pretty much every aspect of MMA, being the most well-rounded fighter the sport has seen. GSP's wrestling is undoubtedly the best in MMA, as he's great at both attacking and defending takedowns. While a typical Demian Maia game plan is to take the opponent down or let the opponent take him down and then work for a submission on the ground, against GSP, the key to victory isn't that simple. While there are habits that GSP could be punished for, like his reluctance to throw right hands, Maia simply lacks the stand-up skill to make that a viable option. Stephen Thompson. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson is one of the only fighters in the UFC to make use of Western-style kickboxing. Every fight he takes part in becomes a chess match. Thompson throws some lazy punches, but will then effortlessly sidekick his opponent away. His one major flaw? He has a lot of trouble with wrestlers. His least impressive performances have come against guys like Woodley and Matt Brown, who were able to hold the explosive striker to the ground. This makes a fighter like GSP a very interesting matchup. While it's easy to imagine GSP holding Wonderboy down for a 5-round decision victory, Wonderboy does possess skills that makes him a danger to GSP. It's no secret that GSP's best years are behind him. The man hasn't fought since 2013 and left the UFC after a fight that many fans felt he should have lost. His reflexes have slowed, and Wonderboy's kicking arsenal could make great use of that. When Wonderboy throws a kick, he uses an old-school karate chamber. This chamber disguises whether he is about to throw a roundhouse kick to the head, a hook kick, or a side kick to the body. Wonderboy uses this triple attack in all of his fights, and it's nigh impossible to know exactly what he's going to throw until it's too late. Tyron Woodley. Right now, welterweight champion Tyron Woodley is in a tough spot. He was off to a rough start after defeating Robbie Lawler in a rather anticlimactic finish. The nature of the knockout turned a lot of people against the already loudmouthed and often disrespectful fighter. After 2 back-to-back controversial snooze-fest fights with Stephen Thompson, fans turned on Woodley even more. With one fight ending in a draw and the other in a majority decision, fans are doubting his legitimacy as champion. A clash with the greatest welterweight of all time could certainly change this. Should he lose to GSP, the fans will no doubt cheer, and it will be an unforgettable moment in GSP's career. If Woodley can pull off a win against the former pound-for-pound #1, it could serve to legitimize him as the division's true champion. It's a very difficult matchup for him, though. Tyron Woodley has a terrible habit of backing himself up to the fence. While it's true that a cornered animal is more dangerous, a cornered fighter has no way of moving back to escape. His constant backpedaling could make it easy for the already great wrestler to gain a takedown each round. If Woodley doesn't change his bad habit, it could be a long night for him. Donald Cerrone. This is a fight that everyone would love, but is unlikely to happen. The consistently terrifying kicker is always busy, having 4 fights a year for the last 4 years. This may change in light of his recent knockout loss to Jorge Masvidal. This loss also takes him further away from being in title contention and far less likely to be matched up with GSP. That being said, it would be a fascinating fight. GSP and Cerrone have both trained at Greg Jackson's MMA, and Cerrone routinely trains with Carlos Condit, who fought GSP back in 2012. The sort of techniques that Condit troubled GSP with, such as sneaky high kicks, are used by Cerrone in spades. While Cerrone usually works a teep to maintain distance and score low kicks, we could see him winding up in trouble if he does that with GSP. GSP could very easily catch a kick and take him down. The good news for Cerrone fans is that Cerrone is so good at fighting off his back, he could still be a danger, providing GSP's submission defense isn't good enough to shut Cowboy down. While it's not likely to be on the cards anytime soon, MMA fans would love to see two of the most well-rounded fighters in the game go at it. Rick Story. Although recently KO'd by Cowboy, Rick Story is still a real danger to GSP should they ever meet. If the two were to fight, it would probably be under the pretense of it being a warm-up fight for GSP, only for it to become one of the most difficult of his career. Rick Story is frequently matched up with hot prospects like Johnny Hendricks and Gunnar Nelson. While picked to lose both times, Story dragged both competitors into deep water and came out with a win. Story brings, though, scrappy boxing, excellent ring cutting, and the toughness needed to survive in a scrap with GSP. The former welterweight kingpin isn't exactly known for finishing fights, and this could play to Story's advantage. That being said, Story is not infallible. Like any fighter, he can have poor judgment. While he's gotten away with certain techniques against lesser fighters, GSP would give him hell for them. Story is often too eager to scrap and actively looks for a brawl when he should be looking for a more technical affair. That sort of behavior in the ring could lead to him leaving himself wide open and getting taken down by GSP again and again. And now it's time for our MMA trivia question. Only 2 MMA fighters have ever beaten GSP. Who are they? Stick around to the end for the answer. Gunnar Nelson. Demian Maia is not the only jiu-jitsu wizard in the welterweight division. Gunnar Nelson has been making waves since his debut, his sole losses coming to previous entries, Maia and Story. Gunnar Nelson comes with a unique blend of BJJ and Goju Ryu karate. He uses in-and-out footwork and attacks in short bursts of lunging right straights. While it has left him open for left hook counters, it's also allowed him to rock many of his opponents. That and the high kicks you expect from a karate black belt, and Gunnar is a dangerous man to fight. The one thing that makes us worry about him in a match with GSP is the specifics of his game. While the world-class grappler has beaten heavyweights like Jeff Munson, he also likes to work more from the top. Nelson's game revolves around him causing collisions to take his opponents down, or otherwise rocking them to get the takedown. He'll wait till near the end of the round and then slap on a submission. That top game is usually deadly, but against GSP, he could find himself getting swept and reversed a lot. Not to mention, GSP is a huge welterweight who could conceivably fight at middleweight. Gunnar Nelson, on the other hand, is essentially a lightweight who refuses to cut to get into the division. Jorge Masvidal. Despite recently losing to Demian Maia, Masvidal is far from done. Since 2014, he has never lost a fight that wasn't a close split decision. While that could be misinterpreted as him being a boring fighter or one who doesn't do enough, that couldn't be further from the truth. While it's true that Jorge doesn't always get it going as much as he could, he has the best quality of a fighter can have: patience. It's that patience that allowed him to score a TKO over Donald Cerrone, and it's also what stopped him from getting caught in a submission by Demian Maia. However, not unlike Gunnar Nelson, he's pretty small. Jorge has spent a lot of his career at lightweight and has reason to fear GSP's immense physical strength. While it's not unreasonable to think that Jorge could sprawl GSP's takedowns and box him up, we don't think it's likely. It could prove a good tune-up fight for GSP. Not so easy that fans could accuse the UFC of feeding him a bum, but not too steep a challenge that it could knock years of GSP's remaining career. If Jorge were to lose, then there's no shame in that. A win, on the other hand, could launch Jorge into superstardom. Robbie Lawler. Only 2 years ago, this was the fight that everyone wanted to see. George "Rush" St-Pierre making his comeback against ruthless Robbie Lawler. The mighty wrestler against the fearsome power puncher, a man who had beaten GSP's protege, Rory MacDonald, not once, but twice. The history books could write themselves. Unfortunately for those fantasy bookers, Robbie lost to Tyron Woodley and the hopes of the champion versus the GOAT were gone. Despite Robbie Lawler only winning one fight without controversy, in his time in the title picture, many fans believed that his southpaw jab and monstrous hitting power would be enough to KO Rush. It's certainly an interesting matchup. When Muay Thai legend John Wayne Parr spoke on the Joe Rogan Experience about training GSP for the Hendricks fight, he lamented that he had come into the training camp too late. That GSP simply hadn't had enough time with Parr to learn to properly adapt to a southpaw. While this certainly explains the battering he got from Johnny Hendricks, we're sure he would have learned from his mistake. Would he prove to the world that an old dog can still be taught new tricks? Or would Lawler's southpaw strategy pay off in the end? Hopefully one day, we'll find out. Conor McGregor. It's sad, but it's true. Since WME bought the UFC from Zuffa, they've cared more about putting on big money freak show fights and less about great matchups. So why not try to make some big money with the two biggest stars in MMA history? While Conor McGregor is far from a true welterweight, he has fought there before. Not only that, but he seems obsessed with money fights. Perhaps this could be a good alternative to him trying to box with Floyd Mayweather. The way GSP matches up with Conor is a little scary. While it would be very easy to say that Conor has had trouble with wrestlers before, henceforth making GSP a threat, the truth is that GSP's wrestling is scary for literally anyone. Putting the best trash talker around today against the quiet, reserved behemoth that is GSP would be guaranteed to sell. Although it makes little sense in terms of progressing their careers, GSP is at a point where he could take money fights whenever he wants, and Conor at the very least seems like an easy paycheck. GSP has a huge size advantage and a huge wrestling advantage. He also has the conservative jab that would make it very hard for Conor to use his normal backstepping left-hand counters. It makes no sense, but it's big money. Anderson Silva. While this could be dismissed as a cash grab, GSP has said before that he doesn't want this fight because he believes Silva's stock is too low. Despite this, Anderson Silva versus GSP is without a doubt the biggest MMA fight to never happen. When they were in their respective primes, GSP versus Silva was all anyone would ever talk about on MMA forums like Bullshido and Sherdog. They were the pound-for-pound number 1 and 2, but no one really knew he was the better fighter, and there was only one way to find out. Yet despite numerous attempts to get it off the ground, GSP has just never wanted the fight. While he has been accused of being cowardly, we think he matches up better for Silva than anyone else. His jab and ability to lead a fight without opening himself up for counters makes it hard for Silva, who likes an opponent to rush in at him. Not to mention that Anderson Silva has historically always struggled with wrestlers and GSP is the best in the game. While their primes are past and this fight is unlikely to happen, we think it could make for one great last clash. Maybe it could be a retirement fight for both of them. Earlier in the video, we asked you if you knew who the two fighters were that defeated GSP. If you answered Matt Hughes and Matt Serra, then you got it right. That's all we have time for today. What's your favorite GSP fight of all time? Who do you want to see him fight next? Make sure to subscribe to TheSportster for more pro wrestling and MMA videos.